He wanted to talk about where do people go to recharge. I call it recharging your emotional battery. People who are extroverted, when their battery's drained and they want to charge up, they go and connect with other people and communicate with the outside world and like the stimuli of the outside world. Those of you who are introverts, when your battery is drained, what do you do to recharge? Get away from everything else, right? Take your ideas and your feelings and your thoughts inside. Extrovert and introvert. Those two people, normal human beings, are going about stress recovery in two almost opposite ways. Those of you who are extroverts, would you raise your hand so I can see who you are? Extroverts? Okay. Okay. Got a few. Okay. I never ask the introverts because they wouldn't raise their hand because they just don't know me that well. Okay. So, extroverts, I need your hands up one more time if you would. Okay. Extroverts. When you're feeling your battery get drained, you like to be around other people. Now, I'm going to speak on behalf of the introverts who didn't have their hands up just now. Extroverts, one more time, just who you are. You see? Okay? Extroverts love this. Me, yeah, I see you, hon. Okay. You extroverts, when your battery's feeling really drained and you need to recharge, on behalf of the introverts in this room and on this planet, I would like to say to you, extroverts, when you need to recharge, please go find another extrovert. Because I'll tell you what, if I'm an introvert and my battery's also drained and I see an extrovert coming, what happens? Oh my gosh, they're going to want to tell jokes, waste time, and I have so much that I need to get done. What I need you to do is, you're going to be holding your breath while I tell you a story, and when you cannot hold your breath any longer, you're going to be seated. In the case of a loss of cabin pressure, an oxygen mask is going to do what? Drop out of the ceiling. And then they tell you, when that oxygen mask drops, what are you supposed to do with it? Have you guys considered deep sea diving as where's our career counselor? You need to take care of yourself first, and then you're going to be able to be generous to others. If you don't take care of yourself first, you get to that point where you just don't have anything to give. And instead of being a caregiver, you start becoming a caretaker. You take away from other people. I was on a Southwest flight. They're kind of known for trying to make the flying experience fun. And when we got to that part about when the oxygen mask falls down, you're supposed to put it on yourself first, even before you take care of your children, for those of you who are traveling with children. They said, then once you've taken care of yourself, it's an opportunity for you to let the children you're with know which one you love best. In walked my first client, a student named Laverne. Laverne was about 20 years older than me, and she had long, flowing gray hair that hung straight without any style at all over her shoulders and down her back. And my first thought upon seeing Laverne was, Laverne is going to need to get a haircut. I can't be expected to place Laverne in an internship if she doesn't have a professional look. Laverne and I were having some conversation, getting to know each other, when she started to tell me about her childhood. In her childhood, she'd been abused, horrifically abused as a little girl. And one of the things that she did to help herself as she experienced the abuse was she would cut her hair. And she decided to break that cycle. And she took her children away, went through rehab for herself to get off the substances that she was addicted to, and brought her children to a safe place. It took her 4 years to get to my office, a part-time student working on her 2-year associate's degree. But all she needed now to graduate was this internship that I was going to place her in. Laverne told me about, as she was healing there at the college, one of the things that she noticed was, over the last 4 years and more, that her hair was getting longer and longer and longer. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't cutting her hair anymore. So every day when Laverne looked at herself in the mirror and saw this long hair, she saw victory. She saw strength. She saw someone who had overcome amazing obstacles. And this long, flowing gray hair symbolized the power, the encouragement that she'd received, and the success she was ready to have. Well, as I listened to Laverne's story, I had a second thought. And my thought was, I am going to do the best job placing Laverne in an internship, and whoever gets her as their internship is going to be so thankful and so appreciative of this wonderful woman. Laverne taught me that day to listen and then lead. Businesses and organizations have a tendency to promote that they're very welcoming and they'd really appreciate your business. And then when you actually show up there, it's like you're kind of an inconvenience. I've actually had people at the end of a work day, when I arrived at their business, because that was the only time I could get in that day, I've had people turn on the vacuums. What are they communicating with that vacuum? Go away. We're trying to close. I've had the vacuum cord go across my foot. Now, am I going to get a discount because the service is so poor right now? No, they're going to charge me full price even though the service is poor, and I don't feel appreciated. The most powerful and effective tool we have in our toolbox for dealing with other people is positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement. I'm going to define it as something that happens soon, sincere, and it's specific. So I get her a hot dog, and Sarah's putting ketchup on it. She's putting mustard on it. She put a little bit of relish on. She's just about to take a bite, and she says to me, I'm going to translate for you, Mommy, I'm so proud of you for buying me this hot dog. You're such a nice mommy. Now what's Sarah up to? Yeah, I know she's manipulating me, but I'm in a food court in a mall. Are there other parents being manipulated? Not all by positive reinforcement? Let's see how Sarah did. It was soon. She hasn't even taken a bite. It was so sincere, those big old brown eyes looking up at me. And she was very specific. The behavior that she liked was buying me this hot dog. But I also want to call your attention to the fact that earlier when I said, if she's 3 and I'm the mommy and she's hungry, what's my job? My job is to feed her. You all agreed with that. Sarah is giving me positive reinforcement for just doing my job. Her dad was the person who made breakfast at our house, and she wanted to be sure to order her breakfast. That night, she ordered sourdough cinnamon rolls. So early the next morning, her daddy gets up, he goes into the kitchen and makes Sarah sourdough cinnamon rolls for her breakfast. When the children and I wake up later, we can smell, it smelled so good. We get into the kitchen, and Sarah looks at this plate of freshly baked cinnamon rolls, and she says to her daddy, "Where's the white stuff?" And her daddy said, "Well, I finished making the cinnamon rolls, and I realized we're out of powdered sugar." And we're how far away from a grocery store? 3 hours away. So when you're out of groceries at Spotted Bear, you're out of groceries. And Sarah is very disappointed. She turns to her daddy, she reaches up and strokes his cheek and says, "I know you won't let that happen again." You know what? Nearly 20 years have gone by since that experience, and we've never been out of powdered sugar in our household since. What had Sarah done? Rather than harping on the error or the mistake, she's now focusing on what she expects from future behavior. And she's assuming that he wants to do well and describing what the future of success looks like. In my classes, there was this tall, handsome guy, and I wanted him. I wanted him. So I found out where he lived, when he went to the dorm cafeteria to eat, what his other classes were. I had this set up where a friend of mine who lived on the same side of the dorms as him, he would be heading into the cafeteria for lunch, and she would call me from her dorm room, and I would just happen to show up in the cafeteria on the other side. So years later, when our children were asked, your parents don't seem to have a lot in common. How did they meet? My children would look you straight in the eye and say, Mommy stalked him.